we tackle the climate emergency is more important than the success of any one particular chain or project. This is why our approach is to be totally collaborative about this. Why Celo community founded and funded the Climate Collective, and why the Climate Collective operates across the whole Web3 space and across, in fact, the whole tech. We definitely have no sharp elbows here when it comes to collaborating with other projects and other chains in terms of moving this along. A high quality, verifiable on-chain carbon market is something that's going to be very important for the future.
Yo, what is good, ReFi Nation? John Ellison here from ReFi DAO, bringing to you another episode of ReFi Podcast. In today's show, we've got a conversation with a brilliant engineering mind, Tim Moreton. He's a PhD in computer science from Cambridge University, working as principal engineering manager at Apple before he joined cLabs, drawn by the technical complexity of Celo's mission and the mobile-first focus that would enable prosperity for all. In this conversation, we hear a little bit about Celo's origin story and some of the technical decisions that they had to make to build this vision of beautiful money. We then talk about the Ultragreen Money meme, as Celo is about to initiate a protocol layer fee to fund climate projects using on-chain carbon, with the support of the Climate Collective and the Rocky Mountain Institute, ensuring that capital at a protocol level is going to fund projects with the highest integrity, and creating a virtuous flywheel for these networks to really fund projects that are making the biggest difference in the world. We'll also hear about this audacious vision to transition to an Ethereum layer 2 using the OP stack, understanding all of the different trade-offs and considerations to maintain a scalable, low-cost, carbon-negative blockchain while also becoming a direct layer 2 onto Ethereum and inheriting the security and all of the benefits that Ethereum provides. If you're new to ReFi, this is a very technical touch on some of the most exciting advances in the ecosystem and really looking at a systemic view on how we can build these blockchains specifically with impact in mind. My hope is that this L2 transition shows to the world the power not only of mission-driven blockchains, but also mission-driven communities to make the world a better place and to put capital where it's needed most. Hope you enjoy the show. Let us know what you think, and we'll see you on the other side. Hey, what's going on, Tim? Welcome to the show.
Hey, John. Great to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Definitely, man. Where are you calling in from today?
I'm in San Francisco, California.
Beauty, man. Miss the Bay. Got to get back over there. There's so many brilliant minds and so much amazing stuff happening, but I'm firmly grounded here in Lisbon, loving the summer and super excited for this conversation, man. I feel like over the last 6 or 7 months, you guys have had so many exciting announcements. I love seeing at ECC this vision for L2 transition onto Ethereum. And there's a lot of stuff to unpack here, but I feel like it'd be nice to just give a bit of an anchoring in terms of Celo's origin story, how you got involved in the project, and really what was the purpose that drew you to this audacious mission?
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly a big mission, and it continues. I've been involved in the Celo ecosystem project for 5 years or so now, and it continues to be, there is never a quiet month. Both Celo, all the projects that are building on Celo, and the crypto ecosystem as a whole just continue to move forward at a pace. But yeah, I got into Celo pretty early on. I was one of the first engineers working on the protocol. I'll kind of wind back and give you kind of a little bit of background. I was a university in the UK at Cambridge in 1999, just as Napster and peer-to-peer music sharing apps kind of exploded onto the scene. I just got to university from having at home having this incredibly slow dial-up connection, and then getting to university and having an incredibly fast internet connection there. And so, studying computer science and these services were just obviously really interesting and really compelling. But there was a point at which I just it suddenly occurred to me that if you're sharing, if you're contributing to these services and uploading songs or downloading at the same time, I kind of realized wouldn't my downloads go faster if I didn't upload? And then I kind of like pulled this thread and followed on it. Thought, So actually the whole network relies on other people like not noticing or not caring that they're contributing, or it relies on their altruism essentially.
Yeah, interesting.
And so this kind of got me thinking. It's like, this is for me. This is one of the first systems that I've been thinking about where, it's composed of like a lot of different components, all operated by like different individuals, different organizations, and so it got me into this kind of down this rabbit hole of like the kind of the economics or the game theory of like all of these decentralized systems. And this was like way before like Bitcoin was a thing, way before any of this was really where all the jigsaw pieces had been kind of put together. So yeah, I kind of went on and studied some of that as part of a PhD, and that was. I went off, ran a startup, worked at Apple for a while, came out, was thinking about like, what do I do next? Wanted something with looking to find something which combined like a strong, if it worked, could have a strong positive impact on the world, and at the same time was like technically challenging and technically interesting. And that intersection is actually quite a small number of things. And Celo, I came across Celo through and talked to Marek and Rene and Seb about it. And it struck me that this project was like, in many ways tackling some of them incredibly ambitious, like attempting to tackle some of the most important like problems in the world, but doing so in a way where actually there was like a lot of application of some of the stuff that I'd studied many years before, and of course had since like exploded into the whole crypto kind of scene. So it's really like trying to say, can we take this emerging like decentralized technology and apply it in a way which allows money and financial services to be something which is more open, more accessible for everybody in the world, and can we kind of create a better platform for finance? And yeah, this really resonated with me.
I totally get why it resonated with you. I mean, the prosperity that's emerged out of the waves and waves of innovation from the Bay Area and other technology hubs really has been isolated to, a small group of people in society. And there are, like you said, over 1.3 million people unbanked or underprivileged. A lot of people don't have access to clean water. And yet we have this incredibly powerful technology in the palm of our hands. And internet is becoming more and more ubiquitous and accessible. And it seems like so much of the existing technology space just isn't really designing for this use case. And so I love that kind of mobile first focused, obviously combined with, natural capital backed currencies. It really does have this incredibly unique flavor that I don't really see anywhere else in the Web3 ecosystem, where the blockchain itself exists to serve a greater mission. This vision of prosperity for all was really what drew me into ReFi. I remember landing on the Celo website and just really resonating with this core concept. And, massive kudos to the founders. Like, I think there's an amazing founding team there. And it seems like what you guys have been able to build at cLabs is a really strong engineering culture to drive forward this vision and really make tactical, strategic decisions about what to build and when. And I'd be curious to understand like how cLab fits in with the broader Celo ecosystem. I know there's a lot of different moving parts, and what your guys' initial decision was deploying Celo as an L1, but knowing that you needed Ethereum as a fork, and how you guys approach that initial architecture that laid you up to this point today.
Yeah, definitely. cLabs is I would say the largest contributor to the Celo platform. We are primarily a product and engineering organization. We focus on contributing to like the public goods essentially that make up the Celo stack, from like the core blockchain to like full node services to smart contracts, the core kind of Celo contracts for various purposes that exist on the chain, plus like all the developer tooling that you need to like build stuff on top. And we're a non-profit. We're a non-stop non-profit organization. We do that with work through funding from the Celo Foundation and through revenue from like strategic partners who want to work on Celo through providing consulting services for them. And yeah, we, as you say, the Celo community is a large and kind of disparate community with many moving parts. We try and operate by like general consensus on like the kind of direction of the project. Fortunately, as you say, Celo has like a very strong, clear guiding mission and tends to attract people who want to see a positive change in the world and believe that this kind of technology can potentially like drive that change at scale. And while the whole thing is still early, I think like, there's the ReFi space is early, like the voluntary carbon market is early, like Web3 and crypto as a whole is early. All of these things are still very much in their kind of infancy of the potential impact they could have. I think we like see as a lot of it. Fortunately, because of this shared mission, we see like a lot of strong consensus around like key decisions and like where we kind of take the project. Every project always stands on the shoulders of giants, and one of the like starting points we took for this project was Ethereum. The early team considered, would it be possible to like deploy straight on Ethereum? And that was very much like the kind of preference if possible. But the challenge at the time was that like the block times, the gas costs,
right,
the scale of Ethereum would just not in a place to be able to support a payments like use
and
case.
It's proof of work, the stigma associated with it. So that's the next
thing, right? So there's two factors. So if I'm trying to like make a payment to you, or I'm standing in a merchant, I've just purchased some groceries and I like want to use this as a payment means, I need like this thing I need my payment to complete, guaranteed within a few seconds, not roll back like as soon as I walk out the door. And I, if I'm buying $10 of groceries, I don't want it to cost me $5 in fees. So those kind of parameters are super important from a usability perspective. And then, as you say, at the time, Ethereum was very much in this kind of proof of work. And I think that was a real deal breaker for Celo, because with the Celo mission being around figuring out how to create a platform which would enable experiments in like economics where the positive side effects of those services or projects would bring a positive change to the world. If the platform itself at the same time was having a negative impact, a significant negative impact in terms of the energy usage and the carbon output, therefore, of just the process of like running the platform and mining, then you're kind of hamstringing yourself doing that. Yeah, exactly. So we knew that there were other ways of doing things. Obviously, at the time, Cosmos had launched. Proof of stake consensus was, it's really comprised of two things. It's like a consensus algorithm, which are like well known and well deployed for many years. I had built and operated like services with consensus algorithms for since my PhD, and we're operating them some services around that area at Apple. There were and then the second piece is like the economics on top. It's like how do you how do you select the participants in the system? And so I think we recognize, because of these various things, that while we really love the Ethereum ecosystem, wanted to be part of it, wanted to like leverage as much as possible of the Ethereum technology and give back where possible to both the community and to the technology stack, we were going to need to fork like the Ethereum client Geth and really plug in pieces that allowed us to do proof of stake consensus, allow us to like have single slot finality. So like if your transaction comes in and is like agreed, then it cannot revert, and that process happens like at least once every few seconds. Where we could make the whole platform, not waste energy and not be cost prohibitive for like simple payments, even at scale. So
totally. And for an everyday user, it's an amazing proposition. It's like, wait, you mean I just download a single mobile app, I can validate it with my phone number, I can bridge money super quickly, I don't have to have like some weird currency to pay for the fees, and I can engage with DeFi applications and causes that I care about super fast right away. Like this is a sort of Venmo style experience. It
Right.
really is an incredibly powerful proposition. Regard, I'm curious to check in. We can go deeper into some of the technology considerations for sure, but like, where's Celo at now in terms of this journey? You've already been here for 5 years. You guys have laid some amazing milestones. You guys have engaged over 10 million active users, but what projects are really shining for you in the Celo ecosystem that you're super excited about from both a technical standpoint and also like real world impact and adoption? Just curious what's in the foreground for you.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. The Celo ecosystem continues to grow. I think we're even in the last quarter, I think we're tracking some of the highest like rate of change growth numbers among active wallets for any Web3 platform, which is great. But there's still an incredibly long way to go before you can reach, as you were saying, like that 1.3 billion underbanked users. Projects. I mean, we're tracking, I think, around like 1,000 developers or so, like projects that range from like very small initiatives from individuals, like built on weekends, through to projects built by and like contributions made by like very large public organizations. So yeah, you've seen recently that Google announced that they're running a validator on like the Celo platform, and providing a bunch of services. A number of the telcos are like really strong partners and have been involved in like the development of Celo for the last few years. And starting with Deutsche Telekom and T-Mobile, but expanding to others too. And yeah, it's a really diverse like ecosystem. And on the usability side, on the kind of like market reach side, I should say, the Celo Alliance like includes numerous international organizations, NGOs, and charities like whose goals align very much with the ecosystem. In terms of projects that I am particularly like excited about personally and can continue to like really see tons of value in. Impact Market was one of the kind of earliest, like, I have to shout out to like Marco and Jessica and team.
Those guys are amazing. Honestly,
like as far as I was concerned, the project kind of came out of nowhere and grew incredibly quickly. It started as a universal basic income protocol where communities could register to receive funds and can self-organize to like decide on their membership. It has grown in scope and popularity, and it continues to, it's been responsible for like millions of dollars of donation to, I think, tens of communities, tens of thousands of individuals, like over the last few years. And we're definitely seeing very interesting things like where those communities are based as they receive CUSD or like other, UBI payments. Individuals tend to then, that creates this pressure for like very like localized acceptance of those funds. And so you see merchants begin to accept it. You see people using that to save, and like it really becomes an important part of like those very local economies, which are often based in like, marginalized areas of like emerging markets. And it's a great project, and they have some really interesting pilots going on around microcredits and microfinance. And I think, I'm excited to see where that goes.
Dude, I think it's such a great testament of the decisions you guys have made technologically that have enabled this kind of project to get this far at this point. Because had you deployed as a sidechain on Ethereum or decided to stick on that track waiting for the proof of stake, like none of that would be possible today because it takes time to onboard these people. And we're talking about the most sometimes rural and marginalized communities, and to be able to provide a platform that provides a basic income for those people and then stimulates economic development internally is so powerful. You look at the dashboard of Impact Market, and it's like 100-to-1 economic impact for each donation that's given. It's like a great infrastructure investment for any state actor to consider just providing a basic income to people. And so I think it's interesting hearing you talk about the larger institutions that are involved in the Celo ecosystem, looking at these different markets emerging. And in particular, I'd be curious to dive in specifically around the use case around telco, because I remember talking to Merrick at ECC and really having my mind blown around this whole industry and settlement between all these telecommunications providers and some of the key infrastructure that an actor like Celo can play to really solve, very costly and very large, problems between these actors. Can you give us a little bit of a kind of snapshot around what is this technology in between telco providers and how can Celo potentially facilitate value exchange across the settlement of these different actors?
Yeah. So, I think the telcos come to Celo for like a number of reasons, and with like a range of different use cases that they're potentially interested in. Of course, like to start with, telcos are this amazing distribution mechanism whereby they, like, obviously most other providers of most handsets for individuals and can preload apps onto handsets. And so, and they're looking, I think from a value perspective, telcos are looking to like provide more value to their users from their network and from the devices they have. And so payments and loyalty schemes and remittances are like are kind of use cases that are like close to their hearts. In the back end, telcos also have other like interesting use cases. So every telco has a ton of network infrastructure, and that network infrastructure, you can think of it as analogous to like the kind of services that you see in cloud compute environments. And they're looking to like that infrastructure currently is shared in very in very contract or paperwork, I guess, driven mechanisms. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to like automate that process, make that something that's much more programmatic. And I think that telcos see an opportunity in like distributed ledgers to be able to record a lot of that kind of sharing of usage.
And these markets are pretty vast and large. And so you see, the Celo Reserve's commitment to, I think it's up to 40% of natural capital backing the supply of stables. And now it's CUSD, CUR, and CReal. Like you're seeing, these stable assets, and then the stability protocol provide, really important financial instruments for people who are really struggling to get payments to families all around the world. And now we're seeing this providing a demand for nature and nature preservation. And I think this is a really fascinating system that you guys have really seemed to double down upon with the integration of what you guys are calling Ultragreen Money. And I'd love for you to dive into this a little bit. I know Celo began as a carbon negative blockchain, a climate positive blockchain from the beginning. You guys are purchasing offsets with Ren, which I know is based in the Bay Area. But I'd be curious to understand how this narrative evolved. You guys said, okay, proof of stake for sure, but we've got to go beyond this. We want to be a positive contributor to the environment. And now you're actually bringing it in at a protocol level. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the themes I think you can see in many places in the Celo project is where the platform itself enables or supports the kinds of applications that it is looking to kind of promote and be a platform for. So I'll flick onto the carbon story in just a sec, but just from coming back to impact market, one of the interesting things that we saw as impact market grew is a desire among organizations that were participating in the network, so validators, for example, that were being rewarded for their role in powering the Celo network to contribute to impact market. And so we, cLabs, built and it was accepted code to allow validator rewards to be a portion of validator rewards to be programmatically specified to be diverted to other projects on the network. And
super interesting. I didn't actually know this story. Right. That's a really cool play. Okay, so that was the origin of this. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so a set of validators in the community grouped together to propose that they provide 10% of their rewards and redirect them directly to impact market communities.
Wow.
And so
cool.
And so from a circular economics point of view, the work of the validators in securing the platform, the rewards from that end up funding the projects that then grow the usage of the platform itself.
And drive demand for the assets. Okay, so that was the first technical implementation of taking part of these, network fees and validator rewards and putting them towards purpose, which obviously was inherent within the community. And then how did this kind of evolve towards the climate conscious lens?
Right. Yeah. So in fact, actually, some of the climate stuff was a little earlier, but this prior to mainnet launch, if you pictured Celo at that time, it's a fork of Ethereum. It's a proof of work blockchain. It already has energy consumption that is less than 1% of what Ethereum would have had at that time. But because we were taking this very much full stack approach, we not just we're defining the blockchain layer, but Celo as a platform comprises a bunch of services in the smart contract layer. So services around identity, around escrow, the Mento stablecoin family, for example, on-chain governance. Because of this, it was possible for the platform to, we're already in a position where we're thinking about how do you reward validators? How do you reward stakers? How do you fund community work and so on? And we're thinking of, we're going through this process of innovating on the process of blockchain inflation and thinking, what can we do here? We realized it would be extremely simple and something which hadn't been done before for the platform to automatically pay funds out of inflation, out of the daily epoch rewards that Celo creates towards a carbon offsetting fund. So not to not just settle for being significantly less carbon impactful than Ethereum, but to programmatically, automatically offset the entire emissions of the network. Because while it's great not to use proof of work, there was still a footprint associated with the validators, the full nodes, potentially other infrastructure operated by organizations in and around the space. And, the best, from a behavioral point of view, of course, the best way to make something happen is through, hopefully a series of nudges, or just to do it automatically on people's behalf, right?
Yeah. Make it the default. That's the best behavior hack there is.
Exactly. And so the idea here was that if we can establish this default behavior that the network every day will provide a certain amount of funds towards purchasing carbon offsets, and to do that on behalf of everybody who is possibly using the network. The idea was not to carefully estimate the carbon output of of the network as a whole, but just to create a back of the envelope significant overestimate for that. And so after the community launch of Celo mainnet, by the validators, one of the first governance proposals that was put to the community was, do you want to activate this, and who do you want to be the recipient of these funds? And the proposal was Ren, a small startup at the time, grown significantly since then, stepped up and were we're willing to take these funds. At that time, there was no on-chain carbon offsets, and so they took those funds off-chain, purchased offsets with them, and then retired those offsets. And in so doing, made Celo significantly carbon negative in terms of its overall footprint.
And it continues to increase in its kind of positive impact for the planet. The more transactions there are, the more that it grows. And I love the dashboard that you guys have built for this Ultragreen Money narrative. Shout out to Justin Drake and all the guys at Ethereum who've built the ultrasound money meme. And I think this is such a great kind of testament to the culture at Celo, and showing how these networks really can be used to make a meaningful impact at scale. And to be able to publicly verify this, and now that you have carbon on chain in liquid supply through Toucan, seems like a major milestone. And we're really just beginning to see what assets can come on chain. I know the gold standard pilot is coming soon. I know you guys also have carbon path tokens, which is industrial methane emission reductions. And there's a really interesting landscape as you're beginning to build these interoperable money Legos and divert money towards causes that the communities care about, and see the ecosystem come alive and say, hey, let's put money into this direction. And so I think it'd be interesting to see where it goes in terms of the overall impact over, the 5-7 year period, because the narrative so far was, oh, crypto's bad for the planet and it's all Bitcoin and everyone's sloughing it off and everything's a scam. But as we have these now public proofs of look, this is the good that we're making in the world, and as we're improving both the financial instruments themselves and then the protocols that diverts funds to them, I think the compound network effects of this can be incredibly exciting. And it seems like you guys have really doubled down on a strategic play with this idea of a transition to a layer 2 on Ethereum. I'd be super curious to hear when this idea started burgeoning inside the Celo ecosystem, because this is a really big, audacious tech move. And where you guys have settled on it now, how the community's responded. It'd be great to unpack this with you.
Right. We're thinking of this on-chain carbon offsetting fund as a equivalent of a kind of small frontier fund, right? It's a demand signal which demonstrates to potential builders looking to create projects or build on Celo, that there will be demand from the protocol level in a totally automated and decentralized fashion to purchase high quality assets that they produce. And in doing that, we can help in the same way the Frontier Fund, which I'm a big admirer of, has been able to stimulate demand in the broader voluntary carbon market. I think what we have here is the opportunity to do this for Celo in an on-chain environment.
And also create a cultural precedent for blockchains that are trying to be used for good, which it seems like all the chains are now looking like, hey, everybody's now creating these impact ecosystem funds, largely some of them modeled after Climate Collective, trying to say, yeah, actually, maybe we should do this at a protocol level. We should be creating demand for these assets and, building out this ecosystem of environmental assets on chain and proving to the world that yes, this technology can be used to solve real world problems, which I think is a really nice framing for the sort of collaborations that these chains are making. Because there is this kind of like real estate war going on where everybody wants users and liquidity and transaction volume on their chain. But at the same time, if we can contribute towards, standards and precedents towards using fees from these networks that are peer-to-peer, owned and governed by their community for the good of the planet and our common good, I think this is a really interesting long-term trajectory. So yeah, I appreciate you going into the climate fund, and I love the community-led layer, and I just can't wait to see more assets coming on chain. I feel like ReFi is kind of stuck in this nascent limbo phase where we haven't quite breached to that layer where we have digital native DMRV assets coming through in large volume, and Gold Standard hasn't quite released its pilot yet. And so it's like, hey guys, the tools are here, the demand is there. Let's see where this goes. So yeah, man, curious when we'll take this from here. We can dive deeper into some of the Ultragreen Money stuff, or we can touch on L2. Like, happy to navigate whatever feels most fulfilling.
Yeah. No, I think first it's worth saying like that making sure we tackle the climate emergency is more important than the success of any one particular chain or project. And I think this is why our approach is to be totally collaborative about this. It's why, the Celo community founded and funded the Climate Collective, and why the Climate Collective operates across the whole Web3 space and across, in fact, the whole tech space, really. We definitely have no sharp elbows here when it comes to collaborating with other projects and other chains in terms of moving this along. And I think a high quality, verifiable on-chain carbon market is something that's going to be very important for the future. Just on the Ultragreen Money thing, I think there's two aspects to this. One is the carbon market piece, and one is users, right? Coming back to this broader definition of ReFi and financial services and tools which have these positive externalities. Some of those positive effects we're looking for are on communities and individuals, but they're also on the environment, right? Mm-hmm. And so they connect at that point. And so what we wanted to do with Ultragreen Money is to link, again, it's another one of these protocol usability links. What we wanted to do was connect the climate aspects to the user applications built on Celo, and make it so that every single transaction that happens on Celo causes positive climate action. So in the same way that when you have a credit card and you go to a store and purchase something and you get reward points, and those reward points could be for some charitable cause or could be just points that you collect. You can think of Celo as a platform after the Gingerbread hard fork, when Ultragreen Money goes live in a few weeks. Essentially every transaction that happens, a small slice of those transaction fees are going into this on-chain carbon offsetting fund. So controlled by this set of organized climate organizations in the ecosystem, including the Climate Collective. And using these rules and this kind of specification set out by Rocky Mountain Institute, they will be purchasing offsets with those funds. And so literally everything you do, whether you're sending funds to your family overseas, whether you're participating in DeFi, whether you are purchasing NFTs, a little fraction of that fee that you're using will go to climate action.
Which is really a model of what our entire financial system needs. You guys are effectively introducing a carbon tax at the base layer of a financial protocol that's powering an entire ecosystem of applications and an economy. And so I think these little experiments are actually very significant in terms of this global transition to a regenerative economy, because, we couldn't really institute this politically in our current system. It would just be impossible. But now we have these diverse networks with open source software and, global communities that are saying, actually, 0.1%, this is totally worth it. Let's do this and galvanize the community around this cause and show the power of these tools to divert capital to really where it's needed most. And I think that combination with, mobile first lens, recognizing people in the global south are basically being hit worst by, the climate crisis. And they've had they've done the least to do anything, to cause it. It's really us in the global north and the developed markets that are creating these externalities because of our lavish lifestyles. And so I think there is a really fascinating kind of loop here with the combination impact market on one hand, natural capital backed assets on the other, and then now protocol level fees going towards demand for high quality on-chain carbon assets. So super, super bullish about this combination. And yeah, man, I'm curious to hear also, like, it feels like the L2 transition really takes this system to another level, providing even closer connection to Ethereum, making bridging and liquidity a lot easier. And also, I guess the technical migrations mean that there can be more of a two-way contribution to this broader growing network of Ethereum and the L2 ecosystem around it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we think of, we put out this, cLabs put out this proposal to make Celo and Ethereum L2 just literally 6 weeks ago before ETHCC. And the momentum, I think, in terms of the support from the broader Ethereum community we've received as a result has been like really humbling. It's been fantastic. We definitely see this as like Celo coming home in a way. I think if you go back to the kind of origins of mainnet, as we were talking about earlier, Celo shares a ton of code, a ton of heritage, a ton of community, a ton of other people in the ecosystem who are building on Celo, are building on both Ethereum and on Celo. We have many individuals in the cLabs team and like in the broader community of builders who are like contributing both to Celo and to Ethereum. There's a lot of commonality there. And so we've been watching for opportunities to propose to the community, ways to like bring Celo and Ethereum closer together over time. We spent invested a lot in like thinking about bridging technology. cLabs span out Hyperlane last year, like connecting chains and connecting to Ethereum. Sharing developer tools and developer experience has always been like something that's been like top of mind for us. But with the advent of like the L2 space and the level of sophistication that the projects there have now reached, the maturity of them, I think now felt to us cLabs as the right time to kind of make this proposal. I think the OP stack and like many of the other kind of stacks for interoperating L2s and are still early. I think, like the ZK EVM technology is incredibly promising, but also still early. But this felt it is really promising. I think this felt to us like the right time to like begin the kind of conversation about like, let's figure out a technical way of bringing Celo back to the kind of Ethereum community in which it has its roots and in which like many of our users also like play. And that's really kind of like where all of that came from. So we did a temperature check with the Celo community through a governance proposal to kind of understand, after like extensive discussions about, this, how people in the community, how builders and users and partners like felt about this. And yeah, the response was definitely like overwhelming. And we had great support from like a number of core projects in Ethereum as well, from Vitalik around this move. And I think we're working hard on it. And I think there's a lot of the next steps are very much to figure out like, what does this look like from a kind of technical perspective, and how do we kind of like make that transition in a way which is as kind of future looking as possible, given how fast a lot of these technologies are evolving and the L2 stacks are evolving, and as how do we ensure that we maintain the core principles and the kind of properties of the Celo platform for users and builders that are important to those users. So in particular, things we've talked about before, like low fees and immediate finality. How do we make sure that Celo in this transition only gets stronger and doesn't lose some of the core benefits that we as a community have kind of worked so hard to kind of build and establish over the last few years? Totally.
And I think the fee component is really compelling. The fact that, you guys are making some pretty hard architecture decisions around the need to maintain really, really low fees. And what I understand from the proposal is that it'll still be cheaper than Optimism, and that you guys are actually making a play in terms of taking the data availability layer and putting that off chain. I'd like to understand more around what this consideration is, how it works, and what also this means for the developer community that might be looking to deploy a project on Celo versus Optimism. How does this all fit together in terms of the end user experience?
I think for applications and users, using Celo should look no different. And with the potential exception that it may be faster or quicker or easier to bring liquidity or funds or interoperate with applications on other L2s on Ethereum and also on Ethereum itself. But a lot of the details there are to be figured out depending on the technology stack. I think you mentioned the low fees piece. I think to do that, we currently believe that Celo as an L2 would need to have data availability off of Ethereum, even with proto-dank sharding going live on Ethereum and potentially even with dank sharding. Although again, there's a lot to be worked out, I think, in that space. We're excited to be partnering with EigenLayer and potentially using EigenDA for that. That's I think, a really exciting project where Ethereum validators through restaking would be able to participate in providing off-chain data availability. It's a fundamentally easier problem to solve than consensus, which means that it can be done at scale a order of magnitude at least cheaper than providing traditional validator and consensus services. And I think what's happening right now with on-chain data availability is you're kind of mashing up the two and ending up paying the fees of the more expensive service for that. So proto-dank sharding is a great change for Ethereum and moves it definitely in the right direction. But I think there's still a significant benefit to be had by moving that whole data availability piece off chain with very little downside, I think.
And it really provides this pluralist sandbox of experimentation for how all of the L2s in the ecosystem can solve for these different problems and optimize for different use cases while still inheriting the base layer of security on Ethereum. And so I think for me, this transition really does not only make me more optimistic around Celo because it's closer to where the main developer ecosystem is, where the main liquidity is. Having permission or trustless bridges is super enticing. Getting money in and off of chains is always such a pain. But now that it can really be a core contributor to figure out how do we scale this infrastructure and lead forward with the climate fund, the carbon offsetting fund. I'd be curious to know what kind of timelines you're talking about. I know you guys are really early into this. It was just last month that you got a temperature check from the community. Are we talking 2 or 3 years? Is this a year thing? When could we expect potential hard fork for an L2 coming into the scene?
That's the question. I think it's too early to say.
The question that engineers love to answer: when ship?
I think it's too early to say. I think it's too early to say. Partly because we've learned about just even since the announcement, we have and also at ETC, we've seen huge developments from other projects in terms of new pieces of technology or prototypes of systems which are tackling areas in the space. Just the last 6 weeks even has kind of moved the needle on this. And so I think we're in the stage where we're that's what we're trying to do right now is exactly that. We're trying to figure out what the best stack and like approach is as a kind of roadmap, and propose that to the community as like the next step, and say, hey, look, we think these are the best design decisions to be made. They come with these trade-offs. They mean this amount of work or these kind of milestones, like, you know, who's up for contributing to this, and like who has thoughts about whether these things, that these kind of trade-offs make sense.
Yeah, of course. And I think these standards you guys are employing are such a shining testament for the ReFi movement as a whole, of being able to take like a really big, audacious vision of beautiful money that actually works to serve the needs of the people around the world who need it most, and is programmable, and yet also saying, hey, we actually see other players in the ecosystem that we really want to be closer with, and we're willing to make long-term technical migrations to be a part of, you know, the networks that are really here to make this scale and make it mainstream and keep it secure. And I think this interwoven mesh network of blockchains working together to solving specific problems in this stack, you guys with the mobile first approach, is so powerful. And so I'm curious to get your take on like the bull case for Celo over the next 3 to 5 years. Like, why should people be bullish on Celo? Why are you guys as opposed to anybody else? And what are some of the kind of core things to leave ringing in people's minds as we wrap up the episode?
Yeah, totally. So I guess the positive case for the Celo ecosystem, I mean, you know, we don't think or like talk about or worry about like tokens or economic value or anything, and none of this is like investment advice in any way. But sure, I think what we're excited about from the project point of view is just this like really this kind of course where we can like collaborate better and share running code and economic security with the broader Ethereum community, at the same time as like continue to see great growth in a lot of the projects that are building on Celo, both on the kind of user-centric side, you know, wallets and tools for emerging markets, but also like the carbon, the emerging kind of carbon markets tools on Celo, and all of the kind of 40 or 50 members of the climate collective there, deploying on Celo and growing on Celo. And so that's, I think, what makes me pretty excited for like the future of the platform.
And who do you need help from? Like, there's such a vibrant ecosystem around. Like, who out there listening that resonates with you? Like, how can people get involved? How can people contribute, either on the developer side or otherwise? It seems like you have such a big technical challenge ahead. Just curious if there's a call out or a call to action for anybody listening.
So developers, contributors in the Ethereum ecosystem, everything we do is open source. We want to collaborate and make Celo the best L2 on Ethereum we can, with like the most decentralized sequencer set and the lowest fees. We want to do that as part of like the kind of emerging standards of the kind of L2 stacks. So yeah, just reach out, and always happy to like figure out how to kind of collaborate there. We also care about making Celo like the ecosystem with the best developer tool, array of developer tools. Sometimes that means building things specifically for Celo, but often it means like making sure there's support from like existing great tools in Web3 on Celo. And so, yeah, if you're a tool provider and you're interested in supporting Celo, you know, please go ahead and do that. You don't need anyone's permission, of course, but like we're here and we're happy to provide and assist. I think in terms of like the carbon markets, I think there's definitely an opportunity here. So I think that if you're involved in MRB, or if you're an organization involved in like certifying or producing or reporting of credits, like reach out to the Climate Collective if you don't already in that ecosystem. There's so much activity happening there. I think it's really interesting. Also on the demand side, if you're if you're an organization that helps enterprises or individuals with like managing their own carbon footprint, if you're an institution that provides or packages up offsets, there's a ton of valuable growing like high quality carbon offsets on chain on Celo and others that can that I think the Climate Collective would love to chat with you about. So yeah, I mean, it's a big community and there's tons of touch points, I think.
And I think the best thing about it is just the people. Like the Celo people are awesome. Like you've been great. Sochi's been amazing. Renee, Sep, Merrick, like everybody that I meet in Celo is just so forward leaning, so open, and truly believes in this mission of, you know, a blockchain that can unlock prosperity for all, using the power of mobile technology, conscious communities on the ground, doing the actual work of regeneration and getting paid for it. So it's been an honor, Tim. Thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed diving deep into the intricacies and seeing this roadmap for Celo in the years to come. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to touch on, or anything else that you want to say before we sign off?
I mean, I think we covered so much. I think this was awesome. Amazing. Yeah, John, awesome, I want to say thank you. And yeah, you clearly have a deep understanding of Celo in the ReFi space, and I think it's been great to chat with you. Looking forward to next time.
It's an honor, definitely. Go forth and enjoy your day in the Bay, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, cheers. Bye.
Bye, Tim.